Welcome everyone to the third episode of Positive Parenting with VM Foundation. I am Samantha Charles, CEO of VM Foundation. For this Parents Month, we are partnering with the University of the West Indies and the Child Adolescent Unit from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Western Regional Health Authority to bring you rich discussions on issues affecting you, our parents. Stay with us. Welcome back. In this episode, we focus on fatherhood, navigating fatherhood. On Friday, November 19, we celebrate International Men's Day, and we look at that day at how we can support our fathers and the various concerns that they have during this pandemic. With me is Reverend Dr. Stevenson Samuels. Stevenson Samuels has invested most of his adult ministry life in premarital preparation, couple satisfaction, and family empowerment. After completing his master's, he focused his counseling practice on premarital counseling. He then pursued further research in premarital preparation through his doctoral degree with the Columbia Theological Seminary. He has been married for 31 years to Larine. They have two adult daughters, Stefan and Abigail. Welcome, Reverend Samuels.
Thank you. And good to see you, Samantha. And congratulations to VM doing a fantastic work and getting all of these international awards.
Thank you. Thank you so much on behalf of VM Group. So tell us about your journey into fatherhood.
Yes, well, my journey into fatherhood started with me as a child because my father was very, very strong and active in my own life and my own upbringing. Strong father, but played a very dominant role in my upbringing. And then when I got to meet my father-in-law, he also was extremely strong.
Wow.
And, so I had two very strong men in my own development. My father-in-law, for instance, they were married for over 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
And my father over 50 before, they passed. So I've seen a kind of longitudinal impact of fatherhood. And then I'm the last of many. So I got to see my brothers and sisters just growing up and being groomed by a good father. I would say that also I'm the father of two girls.
Yes.
And very proud of them. And I have experienced good relationships with my children. I've been very involved in their lives, their own development. I've had a good journey, and I'm proud of them. They're adult children now. So
wonderful. That sounds like a really good start to just looking at, are there specific parenting roles that are unique to our fathers?
Yeah, I would say so. Throughout my own journey and also through the literature, we would know that fatherhood, there are some traditional roles that sometimes we want to put aside, but they are important. The role of protection is very important. When a father is around, the family feels safer, and the family is less disturbed by external forces when a man is present. It makes a difference, and so there's that protection component. There's a provision component too, and I know that in our modern world, women are playing a very, very significant role in terms of provision as they move up, academically and professionally. But there is still a role for a male to play, even if he's not the main breadwinner. He can give support to those who are providing also. So whilst he is doing the provision, he's getting, sometimes equal support from someone else, a mother, and he has to give that support to the mother as the mother also gives that provision role.
Yes.
So that role is still very, very important. And even if he's not working, there is a role that he can play in the provision component of a family, because he can give that full support to the female as she, engages in providing for the family. There is another role that I would say is traditional, but also described in contemporary ways. I would call it policy formation. And, the original traditional term would be priest. He's priest of the family. But I'm taking it wider. There is a role for a male to establish the worldview of the family, the values of the family, the strategic way move forward to achieve purpose and goals and objectives. Those kinds of cognitive, responsibilities and tasks. The father plays a very, very significant role in that area. There are some modern roles that we now tend to look to the father for. I want to mention two. One is the whole business of being a pillar or a support. Fathers provide a support to their children in a way that the child becomes more confident. That's what the literature says. As they go through life, they become more resilient because they really are getting the kind of facilitation from a father that is very necessary. He makes sure that everything is in place for the child to succeed, and that is very important. Another is the whole business of play, and, it is said by one of our anthropologists in Jamaica that play is very significant in the development of a child's life. It does many things for a child. Teaches them respect, teaches them laughter and positive environment, competition that is healthy, all these kinds of things. Strategic action as you design a way to win the game. And fathers play with children, fathers play with children more than mothers.
Is that so?
Of course.
Is that so?
Yeah, them go outside, ramp with picnic, run with them, lift them up, show them around the place and that kind of a thing. There is something about a male and sports and games and play. And that really aids in the development of a child. Can I just mention one more?
Yes, please.
There is something about pride also. They say that when a father bigs up his children,
it's a big difference than if a mother would say.
It makes a big difference. And the father especially, with his kind of ego, carries that kind of pride, component to the family. And so he bigs up his children and, kind of lets them know how he's proud of them, and they do better. They thrive, they fly,
That's a lot that you've given us to think about in terms of fathers and fathering and the role that they play. And so do you think that they should parent their sons differently from their daughters? Let's get a little bit more granular. Is parenting the son different from the daughter, or should there be a difference?
And I originally, in my own self, wanted to say, bring up your children the same way, girls and boys. But there are stated facts about how you raise boys in relation to girls. They say that when you're raising boys, fathers, there is a kind of attitude that he takes of discipline, and establishing guidelines to go forward. And they say that mothers do that to their girls. But fathers do that to their boys. And then to girls, the father becomes a kind of nurturer to the girls. Whilst
so there
the
is
mother
a difference.
Nurtures the boys. So it's kind of the opposite it's a kind of male-female game that is being played in the family. So,
and this is something that we see in most families. Is this the general feel that
they say that
we should parent our sons differently from our daughters.
They say that this
there are
is the
no
general
consequences to
orientation.
doing this. What are some of the benefits of doing that versus treating both the boy and the girl the same in terms of parenting?
It is felt that that is kind of like a natural kind of approach that parents take, that as they deal with the opposite sex, they just become this nurturer. Almost naturally, and then when the father looks at the boy, he sees another lion in the house, and he wants to make sure that he's walking the chalk line, and
interesting.
And there is another theory that speaks about fathers becoming almost like models for the boys to follow. So a boy tries to pattern his father if he has a kind of respect for him.
Yes.
The girl, on the other hand, looks on the outside to find pictures and images of her father with whom she can connect and associate.
And this is why fathers need to set good examples for their daughters. Isn't that so?
Yeah.
Yes, as a father of two daughters, because they mimic or want to go and seek what they see inside.
Absolutely.
And it allows them to be able to choose better partners, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. And being a pastor, I would say you're preaching now.
Yes. So in this time of the pandemic, and here VM Foundation is really here to bring about positive parenting strategies, tools. We understand the challenges that our fathers and our mothers face. But as we're focusing on our fathers, how does a father cope with stress? How does he provide for positive parenting in this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, as fathers try to deal with pandemic and this very rough time.
Very rough.
Yeah. I would say that there are a couple of things that a father can do.
Yes.
I think a father needs to find a group of persons that they can engage, that they can be open with, that they can be transparent with. Because they're going to find that their whole emotional health is being challenged as they face new circumstances and situations, that are more stressful. And so they need to have a safe place, a group of persons that they can go to that are just friends, that they can offload, that they can be themselves, that they can share some of the challenges that they're facing and so on. So would
you say some of these are the coping mechanisms? So if you elaborate on some of these coping mechanisms that fathers can use to be able to manage during this time.
So one is to have this group,
yes.
Maybe even an accountability group if you want to call it, but let us not even formalize it that way. Then I think that fathers need to consider now the importance of having some kind of counseling, even if they're not going through challenging moments, going to counseling is like going to a doctor. You have scheduled. You go twice a year or 3 times a year. Well, you should, consider.
And I think, too, this pandemic has shown us, too, that there's to be no taboo associated with going to counseling or seeking a therapist.
Absolutely.
Because you go to speak and communicate doesn't mean that there's something mentally wrong with you. And again, we want to dispel this myth that there's something wrong in terms of mental health.
Yes,
and
you sound like a counselor yourself.
Yes, I've learned a lot whilst doing these episodes, and we've had many speakers speak on this. But it's very clear that our fathers do need to go speak and be open about the strategies that they face in terms of wanting to try to cope with this very stressful situation.
Absolutely. Another thing that fathers need to do, connect with their families.
Yes.
Because there is a certain level of therapy that you get from a connection with family.
Yes.
And you really can't go beyond the family and do well unless you have a strong, healthy bonding with family. So fathers need to go back home and engage both immediate family and extended family.
And how can our fathers identify when they need help? How can they really see and know when they need help?
Right. So there needs to be a certain level of emotional intelligence to be able to sense what's happening with themselves.
Yes.
So they need to know when they are sad, when they are angry, when they are depressed. You need to know some of the warning signs, if you're pulling away from people, if you're getting upset regularly, if you are forgetting things maybe.
Can I throw something in the mix, Rev?
Yes.
Rev?
If you're not having a bath regularly, those kinds of things.
Can I throw something in the mix? Some of our men, they say, are not great communicators.
Yes.
How do you get them to seek this help and then speak about the help that they do require? What are some of the things that they can? So a father watching this episode today, knowing full well that he's not the best communicator, he's not able to articulate well what he's going through and trying to define the stress, but he's aware that there's some anxiety. What would you say to them? How do they identify that they need some help?
Right. So the minute you kind of look within yourself and you find that there is something that is needed, then it's now time for you to try and seek help. You can also identify that something is wrong by what other people are saying to you.
Indeed. So they need to listen to as well the people around them.
Right, and what we call active listening.
Yes.
You need to listen without defending yourself. You need to listen without interrupting.
Yes.
That kind of a thing. You can also kind of figure that something is wrong by reading. If you read about self-development on self-development issues and so on, you can kind of figure that, hey, my life is not matching up with what I'm reading. You can do those things. Now, as to how you can move now towards getting help, if you're in a religious environment, you can have a conversation with, say, a pastor.
Yes.
Hey, I'm not feeling so great these days.
Yes.
And there are some pastors that are like, they are therapists really. They have the training and so on, and they can actually help you to go beyond where you are or to refer you to someone, Another place I find for help for men is with your own doctor. We're not talking about a psychologist now. You go to your doctor and say,
GP,
I don't really feel so right these days,
Yeah.
And you and him kind of have a talk.
A good way to start a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yes. Somebody that you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. And then he being a professional that can maybe have some capacity to detect, psychological issues and so on.
And maybe lead you to some other resources. And are there some resources, public or private, that you can say to our fathers here that are listening? Are there any resources where they can go and seek help specifically?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of counseling centers in Jamaica that can help persons. Family Life Ministries, for instance, is definitely one, and that is a very popular one that many persons know about. There are some churches like Bethel Baptist and so on. They have an established counseling center that can give support to persons who are in need. So those are some entities that can help persons that are finding it a little difficult to cope with the challenges of a pandemic.
Yes, wonderful. Well, Reverend Samuels, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for representing for the fathers.
Thank you.
We don't want to leave them out because, as we said earlier, positive parenting is all about the mother and the father.
Absolutely.
And we want to ensure that we include both and speak to the various tips, tools and strategies and resources that are available.
Yes.
So thank you once again for coming today.
And thanks for having me. Thanks to VM for the fine work you're doing in this country, and even to be going beyond wealth management, financially that is, to just being psychologically wealthy and healthy too. So congrats to your organization.
Thank you everyone for watching. This has been Positive Parenting with VM Foundation. I'm your CEO, Samantha Charles. Join us next time for another episode in the series. If you need support as a parent, you may call the National Parenting Support Commission at 876-560-9272. There is also support for our children at our child guidance clinics at our hospitals and health centers throughout Jamaica. We have the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Unit at the Ministry of Health at 876-633-8100. There is a Jamaica National Helpline for Children and Teens Safe Spot at 1-888-723-3776, and you may WhatsApp them at 876-439-5199. And if you need to reach out to VM Foundation, please feel free to send us an email vmfoundation@myvmgroup.com. We wish for you positive parenting experiences always. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on VM's YouTube and Facebook platforms and the UE Western Jamaica campus's YouTube page. This evening, we have with us a new guest, Marlon Simpson, a licensed associate clinical psychologist and the father of 2 boys. We want to welcome him as our guest to be answering some of your questions this evening. And we'll be taking your questions now, your comments even, and ask that you place them in the chat feature below. Nice to have you, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you. It's really good to be here with you.
And we're very happy that you're here with us today as part of our Positive Parenting series. As you know, we've been talking about fatherhood, and I think I want to start off all about fatherhood. I don't see any questions yet, so let me go ahead first. But looking at some of the things that our guest, Reverend Samuel, said, and I want to kind of just dive in. He actually spoke to counseling and men going to counseling and fathers going to counseling. Let me start at the end, really about how do we get them and encourage our fathers to do the right things? How do we really encourage them to go out and seek that help? You are a psychologist, and it's very clear that men, I think, generally have a difficulty in communicating. So I want to really pick up and really speak to that point a little bit more.
All right. So men do find it difficult to talk or to open up in therapy.
Yes.
Or rather to come to therapy, because they have, for the most part, grown up with the impression that males don't talk about their feelings, they don't talk about things that are challenging them. But when it comes to a place where they're very uncomfortable, then you start seeing them going to different places, to the doctor, to other persons who they know, and they're like, who can I talk to? And one of the things that I found very interesting is that a lot of the males who come to me, first of all, they would say, boy, I have been looking all over the place and asking different people where I can go. And so I don't know if it's a lack of information, but I don't know how comfortable they are with the thought of therapy. So therapy for some is kind of like a last resort, but I can tell you, when they come, I don't know if it happens with other persons, but when they come into my office, it's like an explosion. They really share quite a lot. They open up, and when they realize that it is not as intimidating or as difficult, then you find that they refer other males to come in, and so that's how more and more males come in. So it's partly being exposed to other persons saying, okay, well, you have been to therapy, what is that like? And so the information gets disseminated, and so more and more persons are coming in, especially the males. So that's one main way that males actually come in.
Great. And let me also try to pick up on a point that Reverend Sam said, which is quite important, I think, and I don't want to lose sight of it. So he spoke to support, protection, provision, and so on, but he also said support is not only monetary. Do you want to elaborate on that? When a father supports, it's not just in a monetary way.
Right. And I'm going to answer that by tying something else that you said, that the fathers play with the children. That is one of the most important things that we have to bear in mind.
Wow.
And so play is not just engaging them in a football game or exciting the children in any way. It's the main way that children communicate with their parents and with other people. So they won't necessarily be able, especially on the age, they won't be able to sit down and have a full-on conversation, but they act out their feelings through play. Yeah. And so when a father is able to go to that level and sit down and play with them, there's actually communication going on there. So I think one of the main things that we need to look at is the whole matter of communication. So in providing for families and for children, one of the major things that seems to be missing or is not really communicated as much is communication, or the importance thereof. And again, it's not necessarily sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation.
Yes.
It could be playing a football game and say, well, you create your rules, we can adjust the rules. And so it kind of teach different things to that.
Yes, I think the important point there is that communication comes in all forms and play is a form of communication, not to be forgotten. Probably one of the more important ones, certainly in fatherhood, as you've been alluding to. Is there a gap if there's no father in place?
I think there is a gap. There definitely is a gap.
So let me ask that follow-up question before you answer, Mr. Simpson. What about can a mother be a father?
I knew that question was coming.
Why not?
I mean, there are distinct roles that parents play. And as much as a mother can provide majority of the communication, the support, the father also has a distinct role. And from the beginning of time, we understand that males or the male parent plays a critical role in helping to, as Dr. Samuelson said, to help the child to grow, to understand rules, boundaries, to play a nurturing role for females, for girls, and then for the boys is more of a rule setting. So definitely, males do play a very, very important role.
Okay, so I take it that when I ask if the mother can be a father, well, maybe not. maybe not. Let me ask you this too then, I guess segueing from that then, does the positive parenting father transfer to the son? In other words, is he likely to become a positive parent as well? So in other words, if you're parenting your children in a very positive way, does that usually transfer? Is it what they live, what they said about a child, live what they see or live what they hear? Does that actually work?
It actually does. And it relies solely on how the child interprets the parent's input. So if they understand the parenting as being rough or aggressive, and even though the father may say, but I'm doing this because, I want to see you grow and develop, but the child doesn't interpret it that way, they're not as easily predisposed to positive parenting. That they may feel like, okay, this kind of tough love isn't really what I wanted, but it's what's best. Now, if the child interprets the behavior as something that's positive, that's good, that is welcoming, then more than likely they are going to want to carry forward that kind of behavior. So both ways, yes. Whichever way they interpret it, they do pass on the behaviors to their children as well.
Okay, so it's very important, the image then that we set for our children in our households, and knowing full well that they're watching, they're seeing, and they're likely to mimic.
Definitely. And let me add quickly that the communication that happens, 93% of it is nonverbal. And so long before we open our mouths or say anything, children understand what we're communicating to them.
Yes, yeah. And that's important. I think we really need to know that. What would you say are some of the stresses that our fathers experience today, and how are the fathers actually managing this stress, especially during this pandemic?
All right. So in terms of stressors, I think that males are having a lot more difficulties managing the stressors, because you can imagine that they are already predisposed to not being very open about their feelings prior to COVID. COVID is here and has just exacerbated all the symptoms. So everything just seems a whole lot worse. And so there's a bubbling up of emotions, of feelings that a lot of men tend to push down, but then it starts to ooze out in more aggressive behaviors. in the way that they treat other people around them. And it's simply coming from the fact that they're just not dealing with or opening up about the challenges that they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're finding that there's a higher propensity for violence, for
Wow.
aggression towards people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply because a lot of the males don't feel that they have an avenue to open up and to talk to, primarily because there's a whole matter of trust. Who can I really talk to? Who can I trust? And a lot of persons who come to me have admitted that they rather speak to somebody who they don't know or who
Yes.
doesn't know them
Yes.
about everything than opening up to family members. And that's a
Yes.
scary thought.
Yes, yes, because again, too, it goes back to the point we mentioned earlier about communication and how important that communication is as well. Is some of that reluctance in terms of, I guess, trust, is that also because of the taboo about going to speak to a therapist? Does it have anything to do with that as well?
Yes. So you can imagine, males are taught not to really open up or talk about
That's
their
right.
feelings. Then
Sadly.
you're going to mention to them to go and see a therapist.
Exactly. Double whammy. It's not going to happen.
And that's not going to happen. But we have to understand that the way that we raise or we treat males translates into how they behave as adults. So if it is that we have a mother and a father per se who teaches the male child, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to show your emotions, you're not supposed to, all these different things. Then when they grow older and they have these problems, well, I'm a man, I have to deal with it. Nobody else can help me with it.
Yeah.
But then as it becomes more intense, then they're like, no, I really am not handling this very well.
Yeah.
And I just need help to really get it out.
I guess there needs to be some focus to and recognition as to how we raise our boys, because they do become men, and the importance of being able to speak, being able to show some emotion. It doesn't mean that you're girly. You know, it's the tradition in Jamaica. I think if we understand how men are raised generally, these are where some of these issues actually present themselves, and then it's a difficult time to really reverse. And so a series like this, hopefully we're reaching some of the mothers who raise sons, that they can look and see some of these qualities that need to be impressed upon our young boys from a very early age. We know too that International Men's Day is this Friday, and the focus is on men and mental health. So hopefully, there'll be a lot around that subject area to assist our fathers even more with some of the tips and strategies that can assist them as well. I have a question here. How can a father living away from home still maintain connection with their children or their child?
All right, that's a very good question. Now we're living in a technological age, as we have come to say so often.
Here we are.
And here we are.
Via Zoom.
And we underestimate. I mean, for majority of the persons, we have to admit it, we're all zoomed out.
Yes.
Everywhere there's Zoom. And we have come to associate Zoom with meetings, with formalities, with engagements. But a parent or father who isn't there physically with his son or daughter can use Zoom. So, okay, we're going to meet every Friday or every other day at 6 o'clock in the evening. And so you can develop that routine. And so you're actively asking questions. How was school? What did you learn in school? Of course, when you start, you're going to get, school was fine.
Yes, one answers.
But as you begin to respond to the different things that they say, then you realize that the conversation begins to build.
And the frequency. The frequency is important too.
Right. So even when I pick up my younger son from school, I used to get that.
Yes.
How was school? Fine. What did you do? Schoolwork. But no, it's, I remember one time he said to me, oh, but daddy, one girl in class said X, Y, and Z. And I said, really? Tell me more about that. And then that just led on to a full-on conversation. So now every time I pick him up, it's just continuation.
Yes,
so
wonderful.
So fathers who aren't there, you can develop that level of conversation, keep the momentum, find the patterns, what are they supposed to be doing. And so it's almost like you're there and the child becomes accustomed to knowing that at this time, this is when we're going to meet and talk.
Right. I have another very, very interesting question, actually. I'd love to hear your comment on this. How can a father who lives outside the home outside of the home, support the mother who has the burden of the day-to-day responsibilities? And when we say support, this particular person is questioning support outside of monetary support. What can that support look like when the father lives outside of the home?
All right. Now, again, as I've been hearing all along, it's not just about the monetary support.
Yes.
And again, communication, because children pick up very easily if there's a contention between the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And when the child picks up that there's a problem, then he or she will begin to back off or feel very uncomfortable. So it's going to be important for both parents to deal with their struggles or challenges or whatever the case may be outside of dealing with the child. Now, what do I mean by that? It literally means ensuring that when you communicate with the child's mother, you can say, okay, what is it that the child is doing? What is the child not doing? How is he doing in school? What can I do to support? Mm-hmm. What can I do to encourage? And that may come in the form of coming to the school for PTA meetings or joining via Zoom. It means visiting the child as often as possible, visiting the mother as well. How are things going?
Should he have any responsibility to the mother? As you said, visiting the mother. Should he have any responsibility to the mother?
That's all.
I'm putting you on the spot, Mr. Simpson. We go for the hard questions.
I love it. Well, I think that's dependent on individual relationships, but yes. I think too, once the mother has that level of support, then it translates into how the child is treated as well. And I think that is something that we often negate or don't really look at.
Right.
You know, the fact that once you are supporting the mother, not necessarily financially, but emotionally and saying, you know, I believe you're a good parent, I believe that you've been doing good things, that really helps them as well.
Right. And I think earlier, this whole mother-father relationship is very important, I think, for fathers to show that respect to the mother. So even if they're having differences, you know, it doesn't translate to the child and the child doesn't see this, because as we said before, parenting, they watch what the parents do. And so we want to always leave that positive parenting impact as well. So we really shout out to the parents who are maybe separated, not together, but really looking at ensuring that there's always a positive parenting focus that's transmitted to the actual child or children. I have another question here. Some single mothers feel very alone and being left to do the hard work. What would you say to some of the fathers who might be listening this evening? You know, how can they assist these single mothers who really do feel as if they're left alone?
All right. I believe that just because the mother is considered a single parent doesn't mean that she has to bear the brunt of responsibility alone.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't care what the excuse is. Males have a responsibility and should stand up to the responsibility.
Yes.
And I'm very, very passionate about women who raise children alone and do feel alone. Because I think that as males, it doesn't matter what our job situations are, we can find a way to make ends meet on our side. We can make ends meet to allow our children to develop and to allow the mother to not feel so burdened.
Yes.
And I mean, that's easier said than done.
Yes, it is.
But it's shifting the mindset from I'm just looking about myself to looking about the mother of my child and my child or children. And I think that that's a dynamic too that has gone largely unexplored for a long period of time. That if you're separated, then you're just separated. and separated from the mother, separated from the child. I don't believe that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have agreed on certain things, but it shouldn't be that that denotes how you respond in terms of, how you treat or how you look after the family.
Right, right. And I think separated parents can still raise wholesome children. It's really about how you have the relationship and the communication between the father and the mother.
Right.
Yes. So, yes, go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Simpson.
Oh, no, I was just gonna share something with you. There was a couple who I met outside of counseling, and they've been married for 60 something years. And I have never seen them argue. And one day I saw one whispering into the other one's ear and back and forth. And I said, well, that's beautiful. And when I sat with them, I said, it's really a model couple that you're whispering sweet nothingness into each other's ears. I said, it's not sweet nothingness. We're arguing with each other, but nobody else has to know. So I'm saying that even if you have a single mother, nobody has to know that you're a single mother.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really very good point. And as we're coming to the close of this series, that's a really excellent point and a very, very good story to end on. Actually, if we all could kind of whisper our arguments, what a different world it would be, especially for the kids and for ourselves. That's a really lovely story. And thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much, Mr. Simpson, for coming on and answering the questions this evening. We were really happy to have you. And I think our viewers appreciated those answers and those very candid answers, even the tough questions, because we do give the tough questions. So to our audience, many viewers on YouTube and Facebook, our VM pages, as well as the UE Western Jamaica campus, we want to thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate you, appreciate your questions and your comments, and we ask you to join us tomorrow for another episode in our series of VM Foundation's Positive Parenting, where we will look at discipline and the child. I am Samantha Charles, your CEO of VM Foundation, wishing you positive parenting experiences always. Have a good evening.